We'll do that. Okay, I do believe we are recording. So this week we're going to continue on with rejection, which was what we started with last week. We did cover emotional self. And remember, I think I did bring this up last week, that rejection is one of our modus operandi. It's one of the things that we do for approval or acceptance, approval being the other form. So one of the questions I would have would be whether or not, and I'm not asking if this is your modus operandi, but I am asking if you have been able to identify it in others so that you can get a handle and understand how some of those patterns work in people. Bringing it back to the self, as I said once before, is really hard to do because it's so much easier to see everybody else than it is to look at ourselves. But one of the aspects of looking at everybody else on one level gives you an opportunity to see the subtleties of how the pattern does work so that you might be able to identify some of those subtle forms of behavior that you yourself may exhibit. So we covered the emotional self, we covered the physical self. This evening, we'll deal with the material self. In this particular case, people will set in motion situations that will block them from moving forward financially. So the questions that I came up with were, how do you reject opportunities for growth? One of the ways that people will do that is they will project ahead and make assumptions that validate their success failure pattern. In other words, they'll say, well, there's something, this requires too much money, requires too much research. I don't know that the people I really am going to like working with, I really don't want to work that many hours. And so they will come up with a rational, logical, justifiable reason to reject an opportunity that is presented to them. One that's presented for growth, because some opportunities will be presented that will help fulfill the rejection and the failure, because they'll have a choice between A or B. A could bring them, A plus rewards. B will give them negative rewards. So that will ensure the failure, the delay, the procrastination. So, because the mind is always seeking to validate the concept as being true through particular patterns. So being mindful of opportunities and then how one handled those opportunities is really what that particular question is about. And then I guess I added also for advancement financially. And some of the ways, and I think I gave this example last week of the guy who worked for me setting up situations where eventually I had to let him go after 10 or 12 years of working together, which really was for me a heartbreak. But there are times in life when you've got to do what you've got to do, regardless of other people's feelings. Because on some levels, if you're in a managerial position, there are other people that you are responsible for. And so you cannot let one person undermine everybody else or undermine the company or cost the company money because it works against everybody else's welfare. So what types of situations, and again, I want to reiterate that I'm not assuming that it's you. However, it may be you being not you who are here tonight, but the you who are going to end up at some point in time hearing this work. And so that's why I always talk in terms of you. Because as I said, as of January, we're going to put the Life Enrichment Journey on YouTube, one session at a time every Monday. So at that point, maybe you would even recommend, if you haven't already, people tuning in. Maybe hopefully you've been sharing the information with others, because if you've been working with it, then you know the true value of what this can do, not only for you, but for your loved ones and your friends, and of course, and your family. And of course, I would say probably 90% of them will not participate, but that's just the way it is. So, other ways in which people create rejection in terms of their material self is they will end up quitting a job. One of the examples I used to use all the time was the guy who started out working in the shipping department, and they saw that he was, right on and really working and hustling. And so they brought him into management. They made him an assistant manager, he got a nice little pay and increase in pay. Again, after 6, 8, 9 months, they saw the guy was really on it, and they bring him in and say, "Look, we're opening up a new unit. We want you to take over the management of this unit while the manager here goes on to the new unit." And the guy says, "Wow, that's fabulous." And he goes home and he starts thinking about it over the weekend. And he says to himself, "Well, the other manager works like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. They didn't say anything about a salary increase. They didn't say anything about perks. All I know is that I'm going to be the manager. I'm going to be working 60, 70 hours a week. With what? No, nothing." And Monday morning when he goes in, do you know what he does? He quits. And in his mind, that was the rational, logical, justifiable thing to do, because all of his reasons in his mind were right. Truth of the matter is, it's that success failure pattern at work. They see his success. He has all the capabilities. He has all the qualifications. He has the skill set, the experience. And yet, in his mind, he can allow himself to be number 3, number 2, but he cannot be number 1. And so he undermines himself by rejecting the opportunity. That is how a pattern works. There will always be logical, rational, justifiable reasons. When it comes to the social self, there are things that people do, such as inappropriate behavior. There are some people that will pick their nose in public. Others will spit on the ground. Others will, chew tobacco, spit into a container. And in some cultures, that's not inappropriate, but by and large, in other situations, it is. Inappropriate language is another one. In fact, no, I won't go there. But anyway, there are people who have no control over what they say. And I'm not talking about, Tourette's syndrome or whatever, Tourette's syndrome. But there are people who just are foul-mouthed. That's just the way they are. And so that can be very offensive, and people can reject them because of that. Another form of rejection is a lack of respect, not only for self, but also of others. These are the people who will interrupt people in the middle of conversations. In fact, actually, let me back up on that, because I did a radio show today. I taped a radio show that's going to show up on iHeartRadio, an interview. And twice they had to interrupt me and apologized. And I said, no, in this kind of a situation, you don't have to apologize, because if you don't interrupt me, I'll just continue on my stream of consciousness. So and it wasn't out of disrespect, because as a guest, they asked me a question. If you ask me a question, I'm going to move forward with giving you as much of an answer as I possibly can, maybe too much of an answer. I am guilty of that sometimes. However, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask. But anyway, you know what I mean by disrespect, or a lack of respect for others. There's also a lack of common courtesies. Some people are rude and socially inept. I didn't want to use the word ignorant, but they have no social skills. They don't know how to act around people. And on some levels, it's because they are so self-centered. It's all about them. And because it is all about them, that's what ends up stimulating the rejection from others. And by getting that rejection, again, it satisfies their internal need. Oh, they really must like me if they're rejecting me. Now, obviously, that's never said on a conscious level, but that is what's going on at a subconscious level. So you may work with people, you may interact in your social circle, and there may be some people like that that have those or lack those social common courtesies. Also, like I said earlier, the people who interrupt other people all the time just to get the conversation geared towards them so that, hey, look at me, look at what I have to say, because what I have to say is more important than what anybody else has to say. And then, of course, there's always those questionable habits that I brought up earlier in terms of behavior. So all of those are things that people will utilize to solicit and manifest rejection. When it comes to the spiritual self, I put down three different things. One was turn away from family religion, turn away from the belief in God, and reject your spiritual gifts. Turning away from family religion brings about rejection from the family. Now, of course, there's two reasons to do that. One of them could be the pattern of rejection at work. The other is enlightenment. In other words, I think that people who are seekers, seeking a deeper meaning in life, deeper answers to what's going on in their life, a deeper relationship with God, may end up turning away from religion because they may have come to an insight or an understanding about religion. One of the things that I say about religion, I used to be very negative about religion until I read Dan Brown's book, I think, on the Bible code or something. And one of the things that was brought out about religion is that it did begin to bring people into line and did create a sense of community. And in that regard, that's wonderful. However, the problem with religion, as I see it, is twofold. Number one, it doesn't turn you into yourself. And we have to keep in mind that what Jesus taught was the kingdom of God is within, period. And that's in the King James Version, that's Luke 17:21. In the Gospel according to Thomas, what Jesus says is that if they tell you that the God is in the heavens, then the bird will precede you. If they tell you God or the kingdom is in the ocean, then the fish will precede you. The kingdom of God is within you and all around you. Everything is God. I always see God as an energy, a force, a creative continuum. And I see religion as a divider of people. Because if somebody is Catholic, in fact, somebody told me that they had asked somebody a question, and they said, no, I'm not a Christian, I'm a Catholic. So that struck me as being kind of strange. But we have Buddhists, and then even within, we have Judaism, we have Islam. Even in the Christian sect, you've got Protestant, Episcopalians, Presbyterians. So we're all divided, and the reality is there's only one God, period. So turning away from the religion draws rejection from others. So the motivation there needs to be clarity as to the motivation. Are we coming from that seeking rejection, or are we going at it because we're seeking a deeper truth? Coming to the realization that we are a spiritual being, not necessarily a religious being. There's difference. Then another form of rejection from the spiritual self is turning away from the belief in God, becoming either an atheist, out and out atheist. And that fundamental belief is simply that we're here, it's one life, that's it. There's nothing hereafter, there's no such thing as God. What is, and that's the name of the game. Another form of, I don't know if it's completely turning away and completely a rejection of religion, but I think it's the agnostic who's not quite sure whether there is or there isn't. So there's always that consideration. And hopefully you would think that they would seek to find a deeper relationship, a deeper understanding. The last one truly is a form of rejection, and that's rejecting your spiritual gifts. And there are, I don't know how that just happened, but there are 12 spiritual gifts. And they are the foundational one, the most important one is understanding. Understanding is everything. And then you have knowledge. There's also expression, imagination, willpower, perseverance, faith, strength. And by the way, the faith is a working faith. It's faith in self, not a blind faith that, God's going to do it for you. Jesus, Shiva, Buddha, Moses, no one's going to do it for you. A working faith is knowing that whatever situation you are presented with, you can handle, you can master, because God would never place you in a situation you cannot master or handle. Even rejection, and obviously the ultimate rejection is death. I think we talked about that in the physical self. And it's not that God is trying to kill you, it's that the person who does that is the person who's trying to kill themselves at a subconscious level. Although some people commit suicide, so that's a very much a conscious decision. But getting there, that root of that act begins in the subconscious mind. So there's strength. There's also objectivity. A very important one is also honesty. And then, of course, there's healing and the ultimate, and this is where the Christ level of consciousness comes in, and that's the gift of love. And the love, and I spoke about that on the radio show today or yesterday, is divine love. And divine love is loving everybody you come in contact with, because you strip away the gender, you strip away the color of the skin, and you see the person as an aspect of God. Everybody is a child of God, period. So any rejection we have, any hatred that we have, any dislike that we have of another human being resides within ourselves and is coming from a concept that we have embraced and believed to be true. This takes us back to what the second teaching in the Gospel according to Thomas is about, where Jesus says, seek and ye shall find. And when you find, you're going to be troubled. And when you're troubled, you're going to marvel and reign over the all. So the seeking and finding is going within yourself to understand the concepts that you work with. That's why patterns of behavior help you get there. And then when you realize the concepts, you're troubled. Oh my God, I'm this way, I'm that way. No, I don't want to be like that. And then you realize, well, wait a minute, that's not the truth of who I am. I'm a spiritual human being. I'm a part of God. I can't be anything like that. That's what they're teaching me, but it's not the truth. And that's the marvel. When you realize that those concepts are man-made teachings and not based on God's laws, not based on the sayings, the universal teachings that Jesus brought to the world, or Buddha, or Confucius, or Aristotle, or Plato, Lao Tzu. They all brought truth to humanity. I think Jesus was the last great teacher to come down the pipe. And if we could do his sayings as he instructed and continue in his word, and reach the level of divine love, then we would elevate our consciousness so the next level of Christ consciousness could manifest, because it's all a matter of understanding. So take a look at rejection, see if any of it relates to you. Certainly, I know it's going to relate to some family members. It's going to relate to some of your coworkers. It may relate to your partner. You just really need to look. And if that's the case, then you need to become conscious of what kind of situations, what kind of actions are part of the setup. There's always a setup and a pattern of behavior. And the setup is to create a situation in which the pattern of behavior can begin to operate, and the setup pushes it towards its completion of the expectation, which is the goal of the pattern of behavior. Every pattern of behavior has a goal at the end of it. That goal is the expectation, and your mind is a goal-seeking biocomputer, and it seeks to fulfill its expectations. Those become the goals. So something to ponder, something to look at, something to write down in your journal under each one of the selves and see how a particular pattern may manifest. Okay, next up is another one of the main forces in life. And if you've ever read any of my 7 causes of cancer, you'll know from the emotional point that there are 4 causes of cancer that I talk about all the time: anger, frustration, resentment, and guilt. So, and the reason for those 4 emotions as being the cause of cancer is because they literally eat you up alive. Then, with that in mind, and by the way, the guilt can turn to anger, as can the frustration, as can the resentment. So from a different point of view, you could say anger is the one emotion that will create cancer. And remember, your emotions, your mind operates your body. Your mind, which is more of an energy, a spirit, a soul, an ethereal essence, whereas your brain is part of the physical reality. And so it is your mind that operates your brain. It will alter the chemistry of your body in order to facilitate the end result of a particular pattern. Okay? So, resentment. What are the things that you resent about yourself? Now, there may be, you may have been born with a disability. One would see, that's a genetic thing. And this is a hard thing for people to handle, obviously, because no one's taught that these genetic situations that people are born with are tied into their karma. Because every soul chooses its parents. Now, some people may say, no way I would have chosen my folks for my parents. No, absolutely not. They were terrible. My father was a drunkard. My mother, they both were drunkards. They were alcoholics. They beat me. They cursed me all the time. No, why would I want parents like that? Well, the truth of the matter is, you may have chose them because they were that way, and you knew coming in that they were that way. And the reason you chose them was because it was going to set you up with so much rejection that you had to overcome it. And in doing so, you would have gained so much strength, so much insight, so much compassion, so much empathy for others in your situation. And who knows, they may have even gathered empathy and compassion when they came to certain levels of understanding about their parents. Because people who are alcoholics, they're trying to deal with their life through an escape mechanism. So there's that to contend with. So there may be things, hereditary. And hereditary diseases are again tied into actually a teaching in Exodus where it's written that the inequities of the father are passed on to the son 3 to 4 generations to the children's children. And those hereditary traits situations are because it's the same line of concepts that are coming down the road. It is the same diet. It is the same attitudes. It is the same patterns of behavior. So now there may be other things that one may resent about themselves. They may have the realization on some levels that they're lazy or they're sloppy. They don't take care of themselves from a hygienic point of view. And so they may resent that and just, not get it, or resent that they can't keep a job. I don't know if that'll show up in our material self or not. I don't know. I don't look at my stuff. Maybe I should look at the notes, but I don't remember everything I want to say except when I get to the slide. At any rate, when it comes to those things, being sloppy, being lazy, being messy, not having good hygiene, these are things that they were taught. These are things that they had demonstrated to them from their parents. That's what they learned. It could also be from their traditions, from their cultures, whatever the case may be. So those resentments need to be understood so that you can, find the concept, find the patterns, thus eliminate that energy as opposed to being angry with yourself about yourself. And then resentment works the other way, externalizing it. What are the things you resent about other people? We can go back to the last pattern of behavior of rejection in social situations. You may resent that somebody is always commandeering the conversation, always interjecting irrelevant thoughts and trying to get the conversation about them. So if you can relate to the pattern of resentment, and either in yourself or certainly about others, then the question is who? Who is it that you resent? Because oftentimes there will be somebody in particular in the social group, let's say, or in the family. You may have a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister, a child. Who knows, okay? What are the things you don't like about that person? And why? What is the concept? What is the emotion behind it? Emotions are the killers. This is one of the reasons why Jesus also taught, be a passerby. Don't get plugged in. Because once you get plugged in emotionally, that gives the children of darkness, remember, we're children of light. That's why we are seekers. That's why we understand we're spiritual beings. And that's why we seek to maintain balance and harmony. We seek to maintain our emotions in given situations, because it is through our emotions that we are attached to the material plane or embedded in this energy morass we call the material plane. Well, in as much as we're connected to it, so are the children of darkness. Whereas our goal is to bring about balance and harmony, their goal is to bring about chaos. So it is through the emotions that when they get out of control, that's when disharmony, imbalance, rejection all begin to work in the negative. And resentment, my last statement at the bottom of the slide is resentment causes disease. And the ultimate disease it causes is cancer. Okay. Next up is the physical self. Now, we can go back to what I just said about coming in, about genetics. There may be a deformity. In fact, I saw something on TV from the Shriners organization. They had an ad running seeking money for the children who are born. Some of you, certainly those of us who are in our 50s, 60s, 70s can remember thalidomide, a drug that was prescribed, I don't know, maybe during the 60s, I think, was prescribed for maybe depression. I don't remember actually what it was prescribed for, but what the consequence of taking that drug was that a lot of children were born deformed. No arms, no legs, or hands connected to the shoulder, just really strange, horrible deformities. And of course, obviously, they traced it back to the drug, and the drug was banned. But there may be that resentment within self because of having a deformity. Again, that soul chose it for whatever reason. Now, whenever I see a situation like that, my first interpretation is I wonder what the karma is. And when I saw that girl today, she was missing her left arm completely, which means, on some sense, that she's had a great disability in terms of her being able to handle the material plane, in terms of her gaining great financial independence in the material plane. However, she's got a good right arm, and so she has a lot of faith in herself, which can compensate for that. However, looking at it from a karmic point of view, one has to imagine, what did she do in the past that inhibited, prevented, cost others material sustenance, material expression, material existence? Because the left side, anytime there's an issue with the left side of the body, it deals with the material realm. The right side, and finances, predominantly finances and expression from that point of view. When it deals with the right side of the body, it's faith in self. It's the spiritual aspect of self, and seeking to be able, having faith to be able to handle these things. Also, from another point of view, if there is a deformity, it has to be looked at from a symbolic perspective. Every part of your body has a symbolic significance. So if there's something wrong, missing a left arm, something like that, then it deals with material handling, material strength, things of that nature. That's why, and I should have probably brought this up we are in resentment, where it says it causes disease. It's one of the causes of cancer. And this is why it's important to understand the symbology of the body, because wherever the cancer is manifesting, that's where there's so much anger about the concepts that are tied into expression, which are manifesting symbolically in the body. As an example, breast cancer. We'll go there because that's on the rise, not only with women, younger women, but with men as well. With men, it's really a little bit different kind of a symbology versus what it is with women, because with women, the breasts are more of a delineation, because, in theory, men don't have breasts. It's breasts that set the women apart from the men on one level. And so if a woman has breast cancer, it may very well be that the role of the female that's been imposed upon her, or that is expected of her, and or she expects of herself but can't perform, can't live up to, or resents being put in that situation. That's why it's essential to understand each and every part of the body, especially when an ailment, a symptom, or a disease, or an accident, or a deformity manifests, because all of that is indicating to the individual that this is where you need to look. This is what you need to understand. This is what the God self is giving you directions about, to help you understand so that you can truly eliminate the resentment, eliminate the anger, and eliminate the emotions associated with all of that so that your divine love, your spiritual self can manifest. So there's that. Also, limitations, which could be tied into deformities. You know, you may resent the fact that as a kid, had a disease, you had polio, which I can relate to. I walk with a cane these days because of it. And so there's limitations that come with that. You know, my wife and I were talking today, we can't take hikes anymore. We can't do the things we used to do, aside from the fact that we're getting older. But, our vitality is still there, but there are limitations. So others have limitations that they may end up, if they're not in a seeking mind way and not in a place of understanding the first spiritual gift, then they may resent the fact that they have those limitations. They may resent the way their body looks. Hey, look, I put on 37 pounds just over the holidays. I did that in 1 week. They may resent that. So you really need to be clear about the different things that you dislike that lead to resentment. Okay. You may also resent the way your body responds to exercise. It may hurt. Sometimes it does. And, you may not even be exercising. Maybe something happened at the gym the last time you went, or you don't feel you have the time, or you don't feel you have the energy. All of that is a state of mind, period. If you don't have the time, there's no such thing. You can make the time. Get up earlier, stay up later. Discipline yourself. Become a disciple to yourself, because discipline, disciple, same word, same root. Now it's you becoming a disciple unto yourself and disciplining yourself to accomplish your goals. That's why I say to you, take 15 minutes a couple of times a week. Actually, if you could take 15 minutes every single day and do a quick assessment. What am I going through? What did my dreams tell me? What patterns am I in? What do I need mindful of? What symbols have I seen? And by the way, if you want a relaxation disc or to download onto your computer to use to help you even go deeper within yourself, let me know and I will share it with you, and I'll send you either a link to a Dropbox. There is a relaxation track in the Dropbox that you're free to have. And it's really a fabulous, I think it's fabulous. I think it'll really take you into yourself. It'll hook you up with your guides and allow you to communicate with them and to do self-inspections and help you understand where you're at on a physical level, a spiritual, emotional, material level as well. Okay, so now resentment of the material self. Now, some people are born with a silver spoon. A lot of people have a brass spoon or no spoon at all. So there may be some resentments about being born poor, was the way that I put it down. And another thing, the other three things, because whenever I think of the material self, I always think about the financial end. So another statement was always struggling to make a living. That could also be tied into the success failure and resenting the fact that you always choose failure over success. The other is not being able to live comfortably, and that goes into the denial that we talked about a couple of patterns back, because the money is being squandered in some way. A habit, a hobby, constantly breaking things. And again, that's part of the denial. And I know there was another pattern tied into that. In fact, I should say, because there are so many patterns, I don't remember them all that relate. But denial is a very strong one. And of course, feeling that you lack money. Now, there are people who make $50,000 a year and feel that they're poor and that they're struggling to live comfortably. And that's because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're living at $60,000 a year, or maybe even 70. Credit card debt. They need to have a new car every 3-4 years, so they never own a car. They're always paying off a car. And yes, the cars depreciate in value. And so, well, yeah, no, I don't want to be nickeled and dimed to death. But from another point of view, if you spend the money to buy a good car up front the first time, go out on a limb to a degree, making sure that you can afford it, and you buy yourself a good car, that car could last you 10, 15 years. Will it be the shiny new thing? Will it have all the gizmos and gadgets? No. Are they necessary? What do you use the car for? From a symbolic point of view, your car is a reflection of you. It is part of your expression. Now, your expression and a vehicle of expression does two things for you. It takes you from point A to point B. So for most of us, point A is home, point B is work. You may drive 10 miles, you may drive 50 miles. I drive, 20, 25 miles. And if that's all I do with my car, then why do you need a new one every 3 or 4 years, outside of programming from the commercials constantly getting on you to consume, consume, consume? If you use what you have, take care of it. The universal teaching is use what you have, more will be given. So when it comes to the material self, using what you have is the finances you have coming in. It's not how much money you earn that's the determination of your material self and how well you live or how comfortably you live. It's how much money you're spending. There makes the difference. If you're spending and you're driven to spend more than you're earning, you're in trouble. So one of the things you might want to do is to really examine where your money is going. Of course, we have, it's like in business, you have your set expenses. You got a mortgage, you got electric. Well, electric may vary also, okay? Because during the summer, you're going to be running the air conditioner all the time, depending upon where you are. During the winter, you may have extra heating bills because of where you are. Insurance, there's a certain amount of money that's going to go to your car payment, whatever the case may be. So where is all your money going, and where is your quote unquote discretional spending going? So you may resent struggling, not having money, not having resources, but the reality is you do have the resources. If you're working, you're halfway there. Now the rest of it is managing what you've got, managing what you're earning, so that you do have a reservoir. You should commit to putting, if you could, 10% of your net earnings after taxes into a savings account every single month. If you can't do 10, do 8. You can't do 8, do 4. You can't do that, do 2%, but do something as part of your discipline to eliminate being poor, because poor is a state of mind. If you know you're accumulating money, then you're no longer poor, okay? And you may be able to take that money and invest it in yourself to spruce yourself up, to take a class. That way you may have increased your skill set, which allows you to make more of a living. So you're no longer struggling to earn, you're earning more money. That in turn could help you live more comfortably. So investing in yourself would help eliminate the resentments of where you are on a material level, because you know that you are making an exerted effort, and I would put the word exerted in bold, because creating a discipline is difficult. because of denial, because of distractions, because of rejection, because of success failure. There are so many things on some levels working against you to succeed. However, you have it within you. You are a part of the God force. You've got the power. You've got 12 gifts working for you. Develop them. Increase your understanding. Increase your base of knowledge of what it is you do as part of your expression. Further your expression. Diversify your expression. See where you can take it. All of those things, it's like using your imagination. We're all of us on some levels become myopic. One is because the way the system is set up. The system wants you to be a spoke in a wheel and to function just that way. And we get into that habit. However, there may be so many other ways to do what you are already doing that could expand your awareness, expand your expression by using your imagination to figure out new and unique ways to enhance your material self. So look to see if there are any resentments in that realm and what you can do about it. From socially, I looked at lack of friends, feel you don't have what it takes to keep up. That could also tie into money. The expectations put upon you to act in a particular way or respond in a particular way. And what are the things that you resent about being social? Some people do resent it. So let's start with a lack of friends. Now, if there is a lack of friends, then you've got to, it goes back to the symbology of the hand, where the one finger, your emotional finger, your pointer, well, they don't like me because, and they don't like me because, and I can't join them because. And so the question, you look at your hand while you're pointing, 3 fingers are pointing back at you. What is it that you are doing that sets in motion a lack of friends? Okay. Now, you may resent that. On the other hand, you may want to be antisocial or non-social, not antisocial, but non-social. Okay. Where you don't have to be out every night and mingling with people. But if you feel the need for friendship and you don't have a companion, you don't have a friend to share life with, to discuss things with, well, what are you doing to prevent that? Are you making the effort to reach out? Okay. I wrote, you feel you don't have what it takes to keep up. Now, what I mean by that is that some people have no conversation. Some people, they just, they just talk about the kids, they talk about sports, but there's so much more to life. And yet they may feel that because they don't read, they really don't question anything, they go along with the flow, that, they just really don't have anything other than getting together with the guys and screaming and hollering at a sports event, or I don't know. They, intellectually, they may not feel because of where they are in their social circle, that some of the people in the circle, are talking about what's going on with, artificial intelligence, what's going on in the medical realm, what's going on in the nutritional realm. And because they don't make the effort to participate, they don't think about those things, they may feel they don't have what it takes to keep up in social endeavors along those lines. And then, of course, there's always those expectations. And remember, this is something that I've said before, and that is most people are acting and being who they think they should be. Even in the social self, they're expected to act in a particular way. You know, it's like you go to the game, you got to stand up and holler and shout, and you just can't sit there and observe and watch the game. I don't know why not, you know, but it's expected of you to act in a particular way. You know, also some people go out drinking. We just heard of a one of our friends' son-in-law went to a bar at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:30 in the afternoon, and sat there till 10 o'clock at night with his buds. Of course, he got, you know, a DUI on the way home. However, but why? And I guess maybe there's social pressure put on the person to, hey man, you're here, you know, come on, drink with us. So there may, and I don't know whether or not he resented the fact or not. I understand he had had a previous DUI. So obviously there's an issue there in terms of him dealing with himself and his expression. And there's obviously there are resentments at work there uh, about things going on in his life. So those are some of the things one needs to think about, work with. And last but not least is the spiritual self. And here too, I wrote down forced to believe in a particular way, made to participate in rituals, not getting your prayers answered, and what are the things you resent about your religious obligations. So forced to believe in a particular way. It's really interesting that, and I don't know, you know, if born again Christians are forced to believe in a particular way, but there certainly seems to be an energy about being a born again Christian, and that is all the other Christians are going to hell. They don't get it. They haven't been born again. Therefore, they're not really as good as we are, and you can almost, I was going to say tie that into resentment, but no. But here's the deal about born again Christianity. It's based on a teaching in the Bible, and I think it's Nicodemus who says something to Jesus, because I believe he was a tax collector. And Jesus's answer was something, the first birth was of water, the second birth must be of spirit. And what Jesus is saying is the first birth is coming into the material plane. You know, you're in embryonic fluid, you come out, you're now dependent on water for life, and water is symbolic of the material plane. So that's the first birth. Now you're here, you've evolved, well, I don't know about evolved, you've grown into a conscious human being. Now the second birth is of the spirit. This is the one in where you evolve out of being mundane oriented, materially oriented, material expression limited. This is really where you begin to manifest your spiritual self. But of course, man doing what he does, wanting to make, you know, oneself be exalted above all others. And, you know, you've got to believe in my way because this is the way it's done. This is the truth of it. And so they're forced to believe in a particular fashion. Each religion has its own set of rituals. And what's interesting, you know, I have a friend who was raised Catholic and went to Catholic high school and maybe Catholic college, a university. And so Catholicism was deeply embedded in him. And these days, he has Ganesh as his thing, and he sets up shrines in his room, you know, and he still follows rituals. They become embedded. Now, depending upon family situation, depending upon your age, depending upon your sense of obligation to the family, you're made to participate in rituals. You may resent that. That needs to be questioned. Obligations, there's a pattern of behavior, feeling obligated to mom, to dad, to your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your buds, your group, your culture, your traditions. all have obligations. They prevent you, because it's a pattern of behavior, they prevent you from being free. They prevent you from manifesting your spiritual independent self. Now, keep in mind, on some levels, in as much as, be a passerby is a statement of independence, the truth of the matter is that we are all codependent on others. I think it was Ayn Rand, and I remember the book, I think, was Anthem back in the 60s. And the cover of the book was a hand reaching out with a chain broken, as I can visualize it. And her whole thing was being an independent individual, and her writings leaned in that way. And I think one of the things that she promoted was the art of selfishness, being all about the self. And, here I am, I own a supplement company. And, I could say, well, I'm independent. I support myself. I own a business. And the reality is I'm codependent on everybody that works for me and everybody who buys from me, because they allow me the illusion of my independence. So on some levels, there's no true independence. We are all codependent on others. However, the level of obligation and the level of entanglement is really what determines your level of independence versus your level of codependency. So being forced to participate in rituals, following the tradition or the cultures that you grew up with, there may be some resentment about that. Not getting your prayers answered. It's really interesting that so many people, I forget what the percentages are, but are turning away from the church. Now, I don't know if they're turning away from God or just their religion, but they are turning away. They are turning away, period. I think part of the problem is that because the way we've all been taught to think about religion and God is that God should handle everything for us. I hear so many Christians say, well, just give it to Jesus. And, the guy's got a lot to do as it is. He's already on the other side preparing the way. Remember, I go to prepare a way for you. All you've got to do is get your act together and do what I did, master the material plane, give up your ego in the material plane, do the works that I did, even greater works, and that's too is in the New Testament. And hey, you'll get here. I demonstrated the way. The way is going within. However, man teaches you to go without. So because people are maybe not getting their prayers answered, they're turning away and they're resenting that all of the faith and energy that they've put into asking to God and Jesus or Shiva or Buddha, or whoever, to answer their prayers, and they've not been answered. Well, then what makes me so angry? I'm giving up on it. I don't believe in it anymore. And that's unfortunate. Because the reality is, prayers are a form of programming. If you want your prayers answered, then you state them in a way that the God within you can facilitate them. I am healing myself. I am drawing money to me. I am eliminating resentment in my life. Those are prayers or programs, because that's what a prayer is. And by using the name I am, it is one of the names of God. Remember when Moses was up on the mountain talking to the burning bush, he said, hey, you're sending me to go talk to Pharaoh. Who should I say sent me? I am that I am. Then in the New Testament, it's interesting because if you put a comma, changes everything. So there's a statement where Jesus says, I am the way, the light, the truth, whatever. I don't know that saying. I don't know where it is. But if you put a comma after I am, that implies I am. That is the way. That is the light. That is the truth. It is the I am. So when you use I am in your programming, in your prayers, then you're commanding the God within you to co-create the reality you're already co-creating. And to facilitate it even more, visualize it in your mind's eye. That's the beauty of your spiritual gift of imagination. Utilize it to see what it is you want to accomplish. I remember, wow, 40 years ago, we had a study group, a healing group. And that's something down the road, hopefully once we get to another level, we can create a healing group where we meet and we take on a client, where in this case, I'll go back to then, the woman had a tumor the size of a grapefruit. I think it was on her kidneys or uterus. I actually don't remember, but I do remember that there was a tumor the size of a grapefruit. We all met on a particular night at a very specific time. We all did the relaxation that I have taped and available. And when we got into the pyramid of the self, into the healing room, we all visualized that woman on a healing table, and we saw the tumor, and we worked at shrinking the tumor. After, I don't remember whether it was a month or 6 weeks, but anyway, she went back, she had another MRI or whatever it was they did back in the day, and the tumor had shrunk from the size of a grapefruit down to a golf ball. And so we kept at it until the tumor was gone. So she visualized it, we all visualized it, and because we're all connected, we had that unity of power. When two or more gathered, there's strength. We can move mountains. In this case, we shrunk a tumor. So programming and prayers can be answered. It's another way of eliminating the resentment, knowing that there are things that you can do about yourself. Okay? So we're going to stop here for the evening. I don't know how much time. I don't have a timer on. But I think that I've given you plenty to play with, to think about, things to help expand your awareness, your consciousness by, on some levels, it's easier to look out and see all of these things that work in others, but never forget that what you see in others is also an aspect of self. Remember, if you stand face to face with somebody and you look in their eyes, you're going to see you. It's really that simple. But it's hard for us to look at ourselves first and foremost. So on that note, I wish you all well, a fabulous holiday season, a healthy, prosperous new year, and we'll meet, like I said, I think January 5th or 6th, whatever that Sunday night is. Until then, God bless, be well, and share your love. Take care of yourselves and be well, and good night and thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Michael. Good night. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Joan. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.